Bioshock Infinite's use of themes like slavery, religious fundamentalism, and class warfare made it destined for controversy within the United States, and in fact it's become one of the most heavily debated games by academic scholars. For the past 10 years, researchers have debated back and forth whether Bioshock Infinite does or does not critique American society. So in this video, I'm going to look back at this debate, looking over some of the points of disagreements to identify if we can state once and for all what Bioshock Infinite was all about. I'm Dr. Darren Reed, and this is Video Game Lit Review. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm a historian over at McGill University, and this is a video series where I take academic research about video games and turn them into short and accessible videos around scholarly debates. Now this is quite a new video series, so please let me know in the comments any feedback or any suggestions, any thoughts, or let me know if there's any games you think I should play in future videos. Today I'm surveying 15 journal articles, book chapters, and dissertations, all written in the past 10 years about Bioshock Infinite. And across all these works, there's essentially three key arguments. First, there's the social commentary argument, that the game criticizes American society and values. Second, there's the ambiguity argument, that the game contains a mix of contradictory messages so that it can appeal to as many audiences as possible and sell as many games as possible. And third, there's the agency argument, that the game essentially criticizes and reflects upon the uselessness of human actions and the inability of humans to impact larger structures around the world. So in this video, I'm going to survey these three arguments, but first here's a super quick summary of the game if you've never played it before. Bioshock Infinite takes place in the year 1912 in an alternate steampunk universe where part of America secedes from the Union to create their own floating utopian city in the sky called Columbia. Columbia is run by an authoritarian dictator and religious extremist named Comstock, who's locked in battle with a group of rebellious freedom fighters called Vox Populi. And throughout the game, the player works to topple Comstock's authoritarian regime and then grapple with the equally authoritarian instincts of the Vox Populi freedom fighters. The war between Comstock and Vox Populi is at the heart of the social commentary argument that the game criticizes American society. Comstock's regime is associated with African American slavery and capitalist exploitation of the working class, while Vox Populi is associated with civil rights activism and labor rights activism. Players are forced to fight their way through museum exhibits about the Battle of Wounded Knee and the Boxer Rebellion, two major elements of the history of American imperialism. Players also have to wander through dilapidated slums filled with oppressed workers and wander past segregated black slaves, emphasizing the dependence of the utopian city on exploited labor. These elements of the game world and their parallels with social injustices in the real world drive the social commentary argument that Bioshock Infinite forces players to recognize and reflect on the history of racial and class-based oppression in the United States. But many scholars question whether the social commentary in Bioshock Infinite is actually meaningful, and instead adopt an ambiguity argument that holds that the game merely throws out a jumble of mixed political messages in order to appeal to as wide an audience as possible. For example, the religious and exploitative tyranny of Comstock's regime appeals to left-leaning audiences who are comfortable with criticizing racial and social oppression, whereas the fact that Vox Populi actually in the game turns out to be equally authoritarian and somewhat communist appeals to right-leaning audiences who are suspicious of wokeness and social justice movements. Scholars also point out that while some of the narrative elements of the game align with critical progressivism, some of the game mechanic elements align more closely with neoliberalism. So the coexistence of these competing political ideals drives the ambiguity argument that the game doesn't actually make any specific social commentary, but uses as many political ideas as possible to drive sales. Yet other scholars argued that the ambiguity within Bioshock Infinite is a piece of commentary, but one that's not directed towards social justice or politics. These scholars argued that Bioshock Infinite is full of meaningless choices that all lead to the same outcome, and that this is making a point about the nature of personal agency. The big twist at the end of the game, so spoilers, but this game is over 10 years old. The big twist is that the player is Comstock from a different timeline, so that the player can never effectively end Comstock's authoritarian regime because there will always be another version of themselves in parallel timelines, meaning that the only way for the player to finish the game is effectively to kill themselves and therefore end all Comstock lives across all timelines. Scholars offer different interpretations of the meaning behind this narrative. Some argue that it emphasizes the importance of taking personal responsibility for historical events such as imperialism and colonialism. Other scholars argue that it emphasizes the futility of changing the world for the better, and yet other scholars argue that it emphasizes the impossibility of knowing whether we are doing something good or whether we're doing something bad, and therefore focuses on the importance of doing instead of just thinking. Tying all of these arguments and interpretations together is a focus on the age-old debate between agency and structure, over how much we ourselves have control over our worlds and how much is controlled for us by larger world structures. So there you have it, 3 different ways for thinking about the messages within Bioshock Infinite: the social commentary approach, the ambiguity approach, and the agency approach. Scholars often write in a way that requires them to take a stance and choose whether one of these approaches is the best and then argue against the other ones. But in reality, I think all 3 can be true at the same time. But what do you think? If you've played Bioshock Infinite, what is your take on whether it makes social commentary, whether it's just trying to sell copies, or whether it's making commentary about personal agency? Or if you've never played the game, what do you think of all of these different debates? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And like I said earlier, let me know if you have any ideas for future games to play, or if there's any scholarly debates that you're particularly interested in. And if you liked this video, check out my other series, History Through Games, or keep an eye on this space where I try to upload a video every 2 weeks or so. I've been distracted for the past month, but hopefully I'm going to get back on a regular uploading schedule. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Farewell.